I've been, or I guess not reading. I've been listening to an audio book by a neurologist. I guess he is. Let me see who this guy is. His name is Matthew Walker. The guy specializes in sleep and the importance of sleep, and I cannot believe the information I'm retrieving from not only this audiobook but from simply just watching the episode of him on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's unbelievable how important sleep is. Why? Oh, okay. Where's his Wikipedia? As an English science and professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. It's impressive. It's very impressive. Why the hell is this book available for $12.99 on the Google Play Store, but $22 on Amazon, and then $30 on Audible? What the hell? Matthew Walker? What the f is going on, bro? My face be itchy. Sleep affects literally everything. And if you haven't checked out Matthew Walker, he's British. He's got a interesting looking face. But the more you stare at him, the more intriguing it is. This is weird to say, but you know how people have just a face that's like, he looks like a cartoon character, especially when he smiles. But it's kind of cool to look at. He's not ugly, but he's like a cartoon character. So the book I'm listening to is called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And he actually prefaces in the book that if you're feeling sleepy during, while he's reciting the book to you through your earbuds, he encourages that, because there's a lot you can learn through your sleep. People have used that method to, learn all kinds of things. He mentioned Thomas Edison. He used to, at first he said Einstein, but he made a mistake and said Thomas Edison. So while he was explaining this, I thought he was talking about Einstein the whole time. God! But then Joe Rogan was like, fuck! I can't stand acid reflux and hiccups. It puts you in this weird position where you gotta just stop and like when you're in the middle of a conversation. Pisses me off. Anyway, so Rogan was like, I can't believe Einstein did that. And he was like, did I say Einstein? I meant Thomas Edison. And it kind of like changed the whole perspective on the thing, but not really. It was still a great idea. So what Thomas Edison used to do is when he would use sleep to help generate or escalate ideas that he has. So what he would do is he would sit in a chair and he would hold two, like, what was it, like either brass or steel, I don't know, some sort of metal, two metal balls in his hand. Then he would put like this a pan, a frying pan or something on, I can't remember, saucepan, some sort of metal pan or bowl on the floor. And he would just sit in his chair with his hands on the armrest, and he would have like a grip on these balls. And he would sit and he would doze off. And then, as he dozed off to sleep, his grip would loosen up, and the balls would fall into the dish, waking him up. But as he was falling asleep, he would focus on his idea. And so, you may be thinking, well, what the fuck? How could that do anything? Well, Matthew Walker explains that when you're actually sleeping and focusing on an idea, that a problem you may have in your life, something you need to figure out. When you go to sleep, your brain actually thinks about this idea in like, I can't remember what speed he said, but it's like 5 times as fast as you can process ideas when you're awake. Because he gave an example of a mouse running through a maze, and they were recording its brain waves, and the brain waves were like, doot 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 doot, and that's the mouse, learning the maze. Every time he turns a corner, a new wave pattern shows up. Every time he finds a new path or whatever, a new wave pattern shows up. But it shows up in a normal, easy to comprehend rhythm. But then as the mouse went to sleep, and it was still focusing on that idea, the brain waves, it showed the exact same pattern as the mouse when the mouse was doing the maze, but it showed the pattern like 5 times the speed. So the brain was actually processing, how to complete this maze, but it was doing it at like a highly fast rate. So it's like, I don't know, it's like your brain's a computer that can, if a human were to try to decipher someone's password, they have to manually go through each combination of the alphabet and numbers, but a computer can scan through all that shit, and that's basically what's happening when you're sleeping. So when Edison was, dozing off asleep, he was processing these ideas at a high rate of speed, and he would figure out whatever he needs to figure out, and then the balls would crash into that pan. He would wake up and immediately write down what the fuck he thought about. And I thought that was such a brilliant idea. I was super inspired to do that. And I think I might try that. Like, is that not just the coolest thing ever? That's just one aspect of sleep. And he was also going on to explain how to get the exact amount of hours of sleep is so crucial. Like, even, the window is between 7 to 9 hours. Even if you get just 6 hours of sleep, it fucks up not only your whole day, but your life. Your life expectancy drops at a significant rate each time you don't get enough sleep. And it's actually counterproductive to try to stay awake to get things done, because motor functions decrease, even your stability decreases. The chance of injury while you're sleeping is so high. But people don't even see it. They, a lot of people are prideful of the fact that they don't get enough sleep. They, they're like, I'm a hard worker. I don't fucking sleep at all. I get 2 hours of sleep a night. And then I wake up and I get right back at her. You only got one life to live. Can't spend the whole time sleeping. That's what they'll say. Shit like that. But really, you spend less time sleeping, the less chance you're going to have a high life expectancy. It literally decreases your life expectancy. Not only that, but it's linked. Having a lack of sleep is linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. It's also linked to, developing specific cancers, because when you're sleeping, your body, I can't remember exactly how to explain this. When you're sleeping, your body produces cancer cells, but there's something that happens while you're sleeping that kills those cells or something. I wish I could explain it. But if you watch or listen to Matthew Walker, you can really get a good understanding of how a lack of sleep can, cause cancer. It sounds ridiculous, but I mean, hearing it from this guy, it just all makes sense. And that's one of the reasons why I love podcasts. I've learned so much, and I've discovered so many new people over the course of, I don't know, when did I start watching podcasts? Like around 2016. It's only been like 3-4 years. And I've learned an unbelievable amount. Like, you can learn a lot from a podcast, especially a Joe Rogan podcast, where he'll dedicate 3 hours to just talk to someone about their ideas in their field that they study in. But then, what was I going to say? Yeah, so then after you watch the podcast, you learn so much, not only about the person, but about what they do, and that motivates you to actually look into that person some more and maybe grab their book and read it. Because you could just go to a bookstore and there's hundreds and thousands of books on the shelf. You may have an idea of what genre or, idea you want to learn about, but you don't know who to go to. I mean, you can look it up online beforehand, but there's so many choices. So when you have someone on a podcast, you really learn so much about them and what they do, and then you can understand, well, do I want to focus on this person? Well, yeah, I do. And then not only that, but you feel more motivated to read their book because you know so much about them now. There's this connection. And it makes it easier to read the book at that point. Because you could just grab a book and read it, and you'd be like, this isn't really appealing to me. It might be a fantastic idea or whatever, but it's not appealing. But as soon as you get that connection between the author and what they've written, then it becomes so much more easier to actually just read that book or listen to it. It's cool. And I guess this is what becoming an adult is all about. Understanding that learning about new things can be fun and super beneficial to your life. As a teenager or as a child, I had some ambition to learn about new things, but the only thing I really cared about was, YouTube and video games, stuff like that, which is expected. But the only problem with that is, as soon as, oh shit, I left that light on. God damn it, there's too much lighting. Oh well. The only problem with that is that when you finally get to leave the nest at 18, your shit goes sideways and you don't know what to do with your life. You know what I'm saying, bruh? Ugh. Learning to be an adult while having no experience in the field of adulting is not fun. That's why I feel like schools really need to focus on teaching the students what the real world is like. There's gotta be ways to do that, right? But unfortunately, we live in a fucking world that cares only about money and only about making money. And so they want to teach the children to be a good worker. You got to show up at this time and stay here until this time. That's another thing Matthew Walker was talking about. Having to get up early for work, especially children who, may live far from the school and have to get up early for the bus or whatever. That's so detrimental. And a lack of sleep completely prevents you from learning at your utmost capability. There's so many, for the longest time we've just felt that like sleep is not that important, and it gets in the way. But it doesn't. It's so necessary. But no one cares. Literally no one cares. They just want to get as least amount of sleep as possible just so that they feel awake enough to get done what they feel like they need to get done. And that isn't how we should live. But try telling that to the average person. They don't care. They just want to make money and stay up all the time. It's frustrating. If only we could have like two... Imagine if we could have like separate universes. Where you get to a point in your age where you could just say, okay, like maybe when you hit like somewhere between 25 and 30, this God comes up to you. I don't like to use the word God, but we'll just say like the universe comes up to you and says, hey, all right, now you have a choice. Which universe do you want to be in? And you choose whatever fucking universe makes the most sense to you. Imagine how great that would be. You wouldn't have to live in the universe where people are doing things so ass backwards. You could go to a universe, because if there's an infinite number of possibilities of universes, you can specify exactly what you want out of everything in your life, and someone can find a universe that fits all that criteria. That'd be great. And then they could have like a whole package deal where you could get like a trial. You get like a 30-day trial, and if you don't like this universe, we'll send you back to where you were born. Oh my god. That's so cool. That's such a cool idea. And so when you get into the new universe, you could have children or whatever. They're born in that universe, and then they get older, and then they say, then they choose a different universe, and that would be so fucking crazy, man. I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where that could be a possibility, where we actually discover that there is an infinite selection of universi. Universi? But how would you get there? We have no idea. I also hate how people have a hard time accepting things in the universe that don't make sense to them just because it doesn't make sense on Earth. A lot of people feel like it has to make sense on the planet Earth in order for it to exist out in space. But there's so many things, like there's a countless amount of things that are going on in the universe that we have no idea even exists or even could be a possible. Like there's stuff that goes on out there that is just so incomprehensible that we can't literally do it. We can't even talk about it. Like, can't imagine it. Can't see. Like, there's nothing you can do to understand certain things that are going on out there. And probably even to the extent that just saying not understanding them is beyond what it's capable of. Like we're talking stuff in other dimensions. We can't understand them because we're in a specific dimension. You know this. Imagine an ant imagine like just having an ant that could talk. Or no, let's not do that. Let's just have an ant. You have an ant on the table. You put in front of him a sheet of paper and a pen, and it's full of math equations, like complex math equations. And you say, ant, here. He's not going to know what the fuck to do. First, he's going to be like, well, what the hell is this pen? Like, the pen itself is going to be complex to figure out, let alone even the piece of paper. You know? Let alone what the math equations could solve. He's going to spend all his time trying to figure out what this pen is and why it's shaped the way it is and what the ink is and what it could possibly be used for. Where the big idea is actually the math equations itself. The pen was just used to write down the math equations, but he didn't know that. He's an ant. So that's what I'm trying to say here. We're focusing on ideas just because we observe them and see them. But that could just be the, just a byproduct, or that could just be the instrument used to simply, display the actual comprehensive answer. But we're focusing on the pen rather than the equation. You dig? You dig me? Dig a grave and put yourself in it. That was late. Dundee.
You guys got any bags of bird ham in here?
You guys